What is something that is actually more traumatizing than people realize? I said, "I love you," to my boyfriend like I normally do, and he didn't say a word back to me. I thought this was a little strange considering we had just finished being intimate. So I said it again. This time, I gently held his face and said, "I love you." He then gave me a hug and said, "I know. I heard you. That was great." That's when I thought, wait, what's going on? He had never struggled so much to simply say, "I love you." I looked him in the eye and asked, "Why aren't you saying I love you back?" That's when he broke my heart. He said, "Because I don't know if I feel that way anymore." Then he quietly turned off the light and went to sleep. I had to go to the bathroom, clean myself up, and sit there wondering if I had just lost the love of my life. He had never once hinted that he didn't love me or wasn't attracted to me, so it felt like my world had been flipped upside down. I couldn't figure it out. Was it me he didn't like anymore? Was there someone else? How can someone change so suddenly? The next day, he left early for work, so I didn't get the chance to talk to him. But my best friend works at the same office, so I filled her in and asked if she could keep an eye on him. She said, "No problem," and started looking out for him. She told me he was sitting in the break room, drinking coffee, and no one was approaching him. Suddenly, he got a notification on his phone and went to the bathroom. At that point, I thought for sure that maybe another girl would follow him in. But no, he went in alone. My friend got closer to the door and pressed her ear against it. She said she heard what sounded like quiet noises, almost like moaning. Listening more closely, she realized he was actually crying deep, heartbreaking sobs. She even heard him drop to the floor. After a while, she stopped listening and returned to work, puzzled by what she had heard. I couldn't understand why he was crying like that. I had never seen him cry like this before. Trying to be supportive, I decided to make him a plate of my special chicken Alfredo and bring it to his job. I left a note with it that said, "You may not feel like you love me right now, but you are the love of my life. I'll always be here for you, no matter what you're going through." When I got home, I was surprised to find him already on the couch. I asked him what he was doing there, and he told me that he had quit his job. When I asked him why, he refused to give me an answer. Then he stood up, hugged me, apologized, grabbed a suitcase from the closet, and walked out the door. I screamed, asking where he was going, but he wouldn't tell me. He just took his keys, got in his car, and drove away. That was the last time I saw him. It's been over a year since that day. When he left, I felt paralyzed. I couldn't comprehend how someone could change so drastically in just a few days. I had already shared with him my fear of abandonment, how my father had walked out on me when I was a child, and now my boyfriend had become the very thing I feared most. Every day, I cried on the phone to my best friend, asking why he left. She promised to help me find out the truth, but also encouraged me to take care of myself. She got me to start going to the gym with her and made sure I got out of bed, even if it was just to walk on the treadmill for a little while. I kept going every day, but I wasn't losing much weight, so my friend suggested I try some appetite control pills to help with my cravings and regulate my progress. With the exercise and the pills, I started to feel more confident, but even with all of that, I still felt deeply alone. My boyfriend had left without any warning, so I decided it was time to try moving on. I posted some pictures on Instagram, showing off my new body, since I was now in the best shape I had ever been. It didn't take long for someone to comment, "Hey, long time no see. All men are the same." I stood there, staring at that Instagram comment, trying to process what it meant. All men are the same. A part of me wanted to ignore it, but the other part was too exhausted from crying and questioning what had gone wrong. My body was in shape. My days had some structure again, but I still felt incomplete. It was like I was floating in a void, waiting for something or someone to pull me back down to earth. Then, something unexpected happened a few days later. An old friend from college reached out to me via DM. "Hey, long time no see. How are you?" I hesitated for a moment, but, curious and desperate for some normalcy, I replied. We exchanged a few messages, and soon enough, he asked me out. No beating around the bush. "Want to have dinner with me this weekend?" I felt surprised, but also relieved. Finally, a date. A chance to move forward and leave that weight behind. The thought of dressing up, being wanted, and spending time with someone who seemed genuinely interested in me felt like the missing piece in my recovery. I agreed immediately, and we set a date for the weekend. At that moment, I felt an overwhelming urge to share the news. My best friend had been my rock throughout everything, so it made perfect sense to tell her first. I was so excited that I didn't even think twice. I didn't call or text her. I just grabbed my things and headed straight to her house. I wanted to see her face in person when I told her. When I arrived at her door, I knocked eagerly, my heart pounding with excitement. I could already picture us celebrating together, maybe even opening a bottle of wine to toast to my first real victory since everything fell apart. The door opened, and the smile on my face froze the instant I saw who stood in the doorway. It was him, my ex-boyfriend. The air seemed to leave my lungs, and for a second, I thought I might pass out. My brain refused to process what my eyes were seeing. He was there, at my best friend's house, dressed casually like he was at home, like he belonged there. He stood there, looking just as surprised as I was, but he didn't say a word. He just stared at me with that same empty expression I had grown to hate over the past few months. I tried to say something, but the words wouldn't come. It felt like the universe was playing a cruel joke on me, like every step forward I tried to take was being violently yanked backward. What are you doing here?" I stammered, my voice trembling. Before he could answer, I heard my best friend's voice from inside the house. "Who is it, babe?"
Babe.
She had called him babe. My stomach churned, and I felt the ground slip away beneath me. The betrayal was so deep that I didn't know how to react. The world around me spun as I tried to piece it all together. How could she, my best friend, do this to me? And how could he, the man who had abandoned me without warning, end up here with her? He stepped back, and there she was, standing beside him, looking just as guilty as he did. They both stood there, frozen, as if scrambling for the right words to explain the unexplainable. "Are you two together?" I managed to ask, my voice cracking under the weight of disbelief and rage. My best friend opened her mouth to speak, but the words seemed to stick in her throat. You weren't supposed to find out like this," she whispered, avoiding my gaze. I took a step back, feeling as though my entire body was caving in. How long had this been going on? Had they been seeing each other while I was still with him? Were you two together while he was still with me? The question burst out of me before I could stop it. My hands were shaking, and I could feel tears welling up, but I refused to let them fall. "Not here. Not in front of them." "It's not that simple," she muttered, squirming under the weight of her own guilt. He was confused. Confused? I let out a bitter laugh, laced with sarcasm. "So, what?" "He was confused when he walked out on me without a word and ended up in your bed." My ex lowered his head, unable to meet my gaze, and that only fueled the fire burning inside me. I wanted to scream, punch something, make them feel at least a fraction of the pain they had caused me. "You two are pathetic," I muttered, stepping back further. "You deserve each other." I turned around and walked away before they could say anything else. My steps were fast and heavy, and my heart pounded so hard it hurt. The moment I got into my car, the tears I had been holding back finally broke free. I sobbed uncontrollably, feeling betrayed, shattered, and more alone than ever. I drove aimlessly for what felt like hours, trying to calm the storm of emotions raging inside me. How could they do this to me? The two people I trusted most had stabbed me in the back in a way I never thought possible. But as the tears dried and my breathing steadied, one thing became clear. I wasn't going to let them win. I was going to pick up the pieces again and rebuild. But this time, it wouldn't be for anyone else. This time, it would be for me. I needed a plan. In the following days, my pain slowly morphed into pure anger. I couldn't let their betrayal go unpunished. My best friend, the person I trusted the most, and my ex-boyfriend, who had abandoned me without a word, were together. They laughed behind my back, shattered what little trust one had left. But they wouldn't get away with it. They were going to pay. I spent hours thinking about how to act. Nothing impulsive or reckless. I wanted my revenge to be real, precise, and leave no trace of vulnerability. I needed to be meticulous. And so, I began planning, crafting every detail carefully. I decided to start with her. I knew my ex-best friend had some weak spots. She was obsessed with her image on social media, always trying to appear perfect, surrounded by friends, leading the ideal life. But I knew how fragile that image was. I began to plant subtle seeds of chaos. Using an anonymous account, I sent cryptic messages to some of her acquaintances, hinting that she was involved in something she shouldn't be. I quietly spread small rumors in her social circle. Nothing outrageous, just enough to raise suspicion. These whispers started out harmless, but over time, they began to snowball. Her social media comments became harsher, and even her workplace environment turned cold. Meanwhile, I knew my ex was living with her, and they seemed comfortable in their new relationship. That's when I decided to strike closer to home. He had always been bad at keeping up with bills, and since I knew some of his passwords, I managed to access a few of his accounts. I subtly altered due dates, canceled essential subscriptions, and changed delivery addresses. Nothing illegal, just enough to create a small financial mess. By the time he noticed, it would be too late to fix things without penalties. This chaos unfolded over a few weeks. It was subtle but effective. They began arguing, tensions grew, and their relationship started to crack. The social pressure my former best friend was facing, combined with my ex's mounting financial issues, pushed them to the edge. I knew their relationship wouldn't survive, and I was right. Amidst all this, I suddenly remembered the one thing I had forgotten: the date I had planned with that college friend. He had been waiting for me, and I had completely stood him up. Guilt overwhelmed me. I grabbed my phone and quickly messaged him, apologizing profusely. I explained that something personal had come up, that I was embarrassed for not letting him know earlier, and that I never meant to hurt or ignore him. To my surprise, he responded kindly, "Don't worry, I understand. I'd still love to take you out. How about this weekend?" His understanding caught me off guard, and I immediately agreed. After everything I had been through, a fresh start sounded like exactly what I needed. On the night of the date, I put extra care into my appearance. I was nervous but excited. When we met, he greeted me with a warm smile that made me feel lighter, as if, just for a moment, I could let go of all the pain I had been carrying. The restaurant was cozy, and the wine he chose was perfect. Conversation flowed effortlessly, and for the first time in months, I felt genuinely at ease. Halfway through the evening, he leaned in closer, his eyes sincere, and said, "I've always had feelings for you. Back in college, I just didn't have the courage to tell you." My heart raced, and for a brief moment, thoughts of the betrayal I had endured tried to surface. But something about him, his honesty, his presence, made those thoughts fade away. At least for that night. The dinner was perfect, and his company made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. After that evening, we began seeing each other more often. He made me laugh in ways I had forgotten were possible, and slowly, I allowed myself to be happy again. The wounds left by my ex and my former best friend were still there, but they no longer defined me. Each new date, each message, each small gesture of kindness felt like a step toward reclaiming my life. As time passed, I heard through mutual acquaintances that the relationship between my ex and my ex-best friend had fallen apart. Their constant fights, the social pressure she faced, and the financial issues he accumulated became too much to handle. He moved out of her place, and she was left scrambling to rebuild the life she had so carefully curated for social media. I didn't feel an ounce of pity. They made their choices, and now they were living with the consequences. But as for me, I was finally moving on. And for the first time in a long time, I felt in control of my life. The revenge I had crafted was subtle, precise, and, most importantly, satisfying. I hadn't needed to destroy them completely, just enough to watch their perfect little world crumble under its own weight. And now, with each passing day, I found myself more focused on the future. This new relationship was blooming, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I was no longer trapped by the past. I was free to live, to laugh, and maybe, just maybe, to love again. In the following days, I knew I couldn't let what happened stay just between the three of us. Their betrayal had cut too deeply, and even though I had begun to move on, they couldn't just get away with what they had done. This wasn't just about my pain. It was about making them realize that playing with someone's trust and emotions had consequences. I started planning the next step of my revenge. I knew that if the truth came out, both my ex-best friend and my ex-boyfriend would face serious consequences, socially and professionally. And that's exactly what I intended to happen. I would expose everything. I carefully gathered evidence. I went through old messages, photos, and screenshots of conversations, compiling everything that proved their betrayal. I also reached out to mutual friends, collecting indirect testimonies, people who had suspected something strange but didn't know the whole story. Every piece fit perfectly, and when I was ready to expose them, I knew it would leave no room for doubt. Using an anonymous social media account, I made a detailed post revealing the entire truth. I explained how they had gotten involved while I was still in a relationship with him, how my best friend had betrayed me, and how he left me without any explanation, only to move in with her. I laid it all out clearly and attached all the evidence at the end, screenshots, dates, and testimonies. The post went viral within hours. No one expected two people who seemed so perfect to be exposed like that. Messages of support flooded in for me, while criticism and judgment rained down on them. My ex-best friend's carefully curated image shattered overnight. And my ex-boyfriend? Well, he finally got a taste of what it felt like to be abandoned. Most of his friends turned their backs on him. The fallout hit their professional lives hard. My ex-best friend, who worked in marketing and relied heavily on her public image, lost several key clients and contracts. Her reputation was too damaged to recover quickly. Meanwhile, my ex-boyfriend, who had a stable job, was let go by his company, with the excuse that an employee's personal image reflects on the business's credibility. Both of them were left in shambles, personally and professionally. As the weeks passed, word reached me that their relationship had fallen apart. The constant backlash, arguments, and financial troubles became too much for them to handle. He moved out to a tiny rental apartment, while she had no choice but to move back in with her parents, unable to support herself. Their debts piled up, and they found themselves trapped in a downward spiral with no escape. Meanwhile, my life took a completely different path. My relationship with the kind-hearted man who treated me well grew stronger by the day. At first, I was hesitant, still carrying scars from the past. But he was patient and understanding, never pushing me beyond what I was ready for. Slowly, he showed me that I could be in a relationship built on respect, kindness, and honesty. Over time, I realized I had fallen in love with him. It wasn't a whirlwind romance or a reckless passion. It was something steady, built on trust and mutual care. He became my safe place, someone with whom I could be completely myself without fear of judgment or betrayal. We began making plans together, travel ideas, personal projects, and even discussions about moving in together one day. Today, we are happy and deeply connected. The peace I found by his side is something I never thought possible. Every smile, every kind gesture, every shared moment reminds me that moving forward was worth it. He helped me heal from the past, and I have finally let go of all the pain caused by my ex and former best friend. I no longer feel anger or the need for revenge. In fact, I pity them. They built their relationship on lies, and in the end, they paid the price for it. As for me, I learned to be strong, to trust myself, and most importantly, to never settle for less than I deserve. When I look back on everything that happened, I see it as a painful but necessary lesson. And the best part is that, in the end, I won. Not just because I exposed them or because they ended up drowning in debt, but because I found real happiness. And that, in itself, is the greatest victory I could have ever achieved.